This week, we are going to talk about a subject that I normally do not talk about. Here are 5 things you will love about Chuck Palahniuk's Fight Club. Number 1, this book is for you. Fight Club is not about fight clubs. It's about Generation X's frustrations with consumerism and isolation, which manifests itself into a fight club motif. Most people passed on the movie since watching men beat each other to a pulp just doesn't sound all that interesting, and I was among that group. But one day I said I should probably see this movie that everyone is talking about, and I fell in love with it. The story is about a man with extreme insomnia who finds solace in disease support groups, even though he's physically fine. His mundane job and life are causing his insomnia, and the disease support groups allow him to sleep like a baby. One day he runs into a man named Tyler Durden who appeals to exactly what he needs. He's his savior, introducing him to a brand of freedom he's never known that culminates in violent fistfights in the basement of dive bars. This wakens the character up to everything that is wrong with his life, which depends greatly on his physical possessions. As the narrator informs us, you buy furniture. You tell yourself, this is the last sofa I will ever need in my life. Buy the sofa. Then for a couple years you're satisfied that no matter what goes wrong, at least you've got your sofa issue handled. Then the right set of dishes. Then the perfect bed. The drapes. The rug. Then you're trapped in your lovely nest, and the things that you used to own, now they own you. It's the anti-consumerism of Fight Club that makes it universally appealing to Gen X and other generations that came after us. One scene really spoke to me at a personal level though, and that leads us to number 2, the concrete shell of the narrator's apartment. There's an inciting incident that sends the narrator spiraling into the arms of Tyler Durden. The narrator is what fans of the book generally refer to the main character by, since his name is never actually mentioned. That inciting incident is his apartment blowing up due to a gas leak, resulting in the loss of all his prized possessions. The floor-to-ceiling windows and their aluminum frames went out, and the sofa and the lamps and the dishes and sheet sets in flames, and the high school annuals and diplomas and telephone, everything blasted out from the 15th floor in a sort of solar flare. Oh, not my refrigerator. I collected shelves full of different mustards, some stone ground, some English pub style. There were 14 different flavors of fat-free salad dressing and 7 kinds of capers. And as his doorman puts it, all that's left is the concrete shell. A concrete shell where the main character's life used to be, a perfect metaphor. I really felt this image hitting me hard. The reason this resonated so strongly with me, and I'm gonna get a bit personal here, is because something similar happened to myself a few years ago. See this? That's my apartment building. Right there is my bedroom, and that's my living room. I woke up one night to smoke alarms going off. Everyone made it out just fine, and the fire department put it out, but I couldn't tell if my unit had been burnt or not. And on top of that, they weren't letting anyone into the building until the fire and insurance people did their stuff in the morning. So basically, I had my jeans, t-shirt, wallet, and car, and quite a few hours to kill. I wandered around my city in the middle of the night with no place to go, unsure if I had lost everything. By noon the next day, I received word that my apartment and everything in it survived. The fire had gotten close, but my stuff was safe. But here's the odd part. For the 11-hour period when I didn't know if all my stuff was gone, it was not as stressful as you might think. I felt a calm sense of freedom and relief. I had nothing to tie me down, no possessions except for a brand new car. I could just jump in it and drive anywhere I wanted to and start a new life, and nobody would judge me for this. For a brief period, I felt an unbelievable sense of freedom, just like the narrator in Fight Club. So the scene where his apartment blows up really resonated with me, and I understood what the narrator was going through. It's as if he's a blank slate, set free from his material possessions. He's an empty canvas waiting to be filled. After the narrator reaches out to Tyler for a place to stay, they end up in deep conversation over beers, and that leads us to number 3. Tyler's kiss. The narrator experiences his first instances of enlightenment when Tyler Durden burns his hand with hydrogen peroxide. He refers to the scar as Tyler's kiss. It represents his initiation into Tyler's way of thinking. Come back to the pain, Tyler says. This is the kind of guided meditation they use at support groups. Don't even think of the word pain. Guided meditation works for cancer. It can work for this. Look at your hand, Tyler says. Don't look at your hand. Don't think of the words searing or flesh or tissue or charred. Don't hear yourself cry. Guided meditation. You're in Ireland. Close your eyes. As the narrator suffers extreme pain from the chemical burn, he remembers a trip after college when he visits the Blarney Stone, and instead of kissing it, he pees on it. When the pain of the burn wears off, Tyler tells him that he's begun his journey to the bottom, and the narrator is reborn. And if that quote seems a bit choppy or forced, well, it is, and that leads us to number 4, the prose style. As mentioned before, this is a story about a man dealing with insomnia. The text of the book is told in rapid fire with short sentence bursts, offset by longer stream of consciousness monologues. The story is is fractured and told at breakneck speed, and the sparse prose style really puts you in the mind of an insomniac. The author also makes a lot of use of the second-person point of view, but doesn't rely on it as a gimmick. Just look at how the narrator describes Fight Club. You aren't alive anywhere like you're alive at Fight Club, when it's you and one other guy under that one light in the middle of all those watching. Fight Club isn't about winning or losing. Fight Club isn't about words. You see a guy come to Fight Club for the first time and his ass is a loaf of white bread. You see the same guy here 6 months later and he looks carved out of wood. The guy trusts himself to handle anything. There's grunting and noise at Fight Club like at the gym, but Fight Club isn't about looking good. There's hysterical shouting in tongues like at church, and when you wake up Sunday afternoon, you feel saved. The forcefulness of Tyler's quotes make the book insanely quotable, as you've probably heard the phrase, "You don't talk about Fight Club, and you are not your job." But there are many others. It's only after you've lost everything, Tyler says, that you're free to do anything. You are not a beautiful and unique snowflake. You are the same decaying organic matter as everyone else, and we are part of the same compost pile. Look at that, Tyler Durden was calling people snowflakes before it was cool. Advertising has these people chasing cars and clothes they don't need. Generations have been working in jobs they hate, just so they can buy what they don't really need. We don't have a great war in our generation, or a Great Depression, but we do. We have a great war of the spirit. We have a great revolution against culture. The Great Depression is our lives. We have a spiritual depression. Okay, enough quotes. Number 5. This book will speak to you. Some folks have called this book satire, but I don't think it is. I think the anti-consumerist message is quite sincere, and the violence and terrorism is more of a medium on which that message is piggybacked. By the end of the book, we realize that we are the narrator, and that there might be a little of Tyler Durden in all of us. That's a message that some find terrifying. Critics have responded by labeling this as toxic masculinity, or wrote it off completely as satire, or placed it in a genre called dick lit. If you don't know, dick lit is a response to some who put certain books into the derogatory category of chick lit. But I think those who write the book off as satire fit into a certain category of people who have trouble handling truth. The message and delivery are too strong for some, so they retreat to the warm blanket known as satirization. Critics have also called the book homoerotic, but that's that crowd of people that label anything masculine as subliminally gay. But too many people have said this book and the movie spoke to them on a certain level, and many quote Tyler Durden with sincerity. We don't like to admit that Tyler Durden represents a tiny piece of every human psyche. Chuck Palahniuk has done a fine job of planting these ideas into our precious snowflake heads, and it's worth noting there are quite a few women who praised this book. I'm not sure if I've ever heard of an act of violence or terrorism being inspired by Fight Club. However, I do feel the anti-consumer message has been received by readers and incorporated into their lives. After reading about Tyler and the narrator beating on each other to a bloody pulp, someone might come away from the book realizing that they need to travel more, learn a new language, or take up a new hobby. Maybe visit Zion National Park over Las Vegas, learn to cook Thai food instead of ordering a pizza, or read David Foster Wallace over the works of Dan Brown, all inspired by these two characters who stepped outside the norm and tried something new. If the book has this effect on a reader, then it's worth your time investment. That's it for this week. Coming up, we're going to be reviewing The Queen's Gambit, Wise Guy, and Darkly Dreaming Dexter. Don't forget to check out my book, Grand Portage, about a guy who steps out of his own comfort zone and buys a nuclear aircraft carrier. It's available on Amazon in Kindle and paperback. If you enjoyed this video, please do not share it. You do not talk about book club. And remember, never stop reading.